Arab billionaire insulted his secretary at a board meeting, not knowing she cost him 10B, instantly. "You worthless piece of trash!" Ahmed's voice exploded across the boardroom like thunder. His face was twisted with rage as he pointed a trembling finger at the woman standing by the presentation screen. "How dare you embarrass me in front of my investors with your pathetic incompetence?" The Japanese executives shifted uncomfortably in their leather chairs, their eyes darting between the furious billionaire and the composed woman who stood perfectly still, absorbing every venomous word. Maya's expression remained neutral, but something flickered behind her dark eyes, something that would soon cost Ahmed everything. "Get out of my sight before I have you deported," Ahmed snarled in Arabic, certain she couldn't understand. But what this oil tycoon didn't know was that his worthless secretary was about to destroy his $10 billion empire with just 3 words. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from, because you're about to witness the most expensive mistake in business history. But let's rewind 12 hours to understand how the most powerful man in the Middle East became the architect of his own destruction. Ahmed al-Mansouri stood on the marble balcony of his Dubai penthouse at 6 a.m., watching the sun paint the Persian Gulf in shades of gold. At 42, he commanded an empire worth $15 billion, with oil refineries across 3 continents and a reputation that made presidents take his calls. Today would be the pinnacle of his career, a $10 billion joint venture with Nakamura Industries, Japan's largest conglomerate. His phone buzzed. "Mr. al-Mansouri," came the panicked voice of his assistant. "Fatima is in the hospital. Food poisoning. She can't make it to today's presentation." Ahmed's jaw tightened. Fatima had been his personal secretary for 8 years, the only person who truly understood his meticulous standards. "Find a replacement. Now." "Sir, it's 6 a.m. The agencies won't open for—" "I don't care if you have to wake up every temp agency in Dubai." Ahmed's voice cut like ice. "I need someone fluent in English and Japanese, familiar with international business protocols, and available in 2 hours. This deal cannot fail because of staff incompetence." By 8:30 a.m., Ahmed was pacing his corner office on the 47th floor of the Burj al-Mansouri, Dubai's newest architectural marvel. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a commanding view of the city he had helped build, but today, even that sight couldn't calm his nerves. Everything had to be perfect. The Japanese were notorious for their attention to detail, and Hiroshi Nakamura himself would be leading their delegation. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he barked without turning around. "Mr. al-Mansouri?" The voice was soft, professional, with a slight accent he couldn't immediately place. "I'm Maya from Premier Executive Services. I'll be assisting you today." Ahmed turned, his eyes immediately cataloguing her appearance with the cold efficiency he applied to business deals. Mid-30s, average height, wearing a conservative navy suit that looked expensive but not ostentatious. Her black hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her dark eyes held a calm intelligence that should have given him pause. Instead, he saw only what he expected to see: a temporary worker, a placeholder, someone beneath his notice. "You're late," he said curtly, though she was actually 3 minutes early. "The Nakamura delegation arrives at 10 a.m. sharp. This is the most important meeting in my company's history, and I will not tolerate even the smallest mistake. Do you understand?" "Perfectly, sir," Maya replied, her voice steady. "I've reviewed the preliminary documents your office sent over. The renewable energy partnership proposal is quite impressive." Ahmed's eyebrows lifted slightly. Most temp secretaries wouldn't have bothered reading the materials, let alone understood them. "Don't pretend to understand business beyond your capabilities," he said dismissively. "Just follow my instructions exactly. Keep the refreshments flowing, and try not to embarrass me in front of our guests. Can you handle that?" Something almost imperceptible shifted in Maya's expression, like a curtain being drawn across a window. "Of course, Mr. al-Mansouri. I'll do my absolute best." The way she emphasized those last words made him look at her more closely, but her face had returned to perfect professional neutrality. For the next hour, Maya moved through the office with quiet efficiency, coordinating with catering, double-checking the presentation equipment, and ensuring every detail was flawless. Ahmed watched her peripherally, grudgingly impressed by her competence, but too proud to acknowledge it. In his world, excellence was expected, not praised. At 9:45 a.m., Maya approached his desk. "Sir, the Nakamura team has arrived early. They're being escorted up now." Ahmed straightened his Hermes tie and checked his Patek Philippe watch. Time to close the biggest deal of his life. The elevator doors opened with a whisper, and 5 impeccably dressed Japanese executives stepped into the marble lobby. Leading them was Hiroshi Nakamura himself, a silver-haired man in his 60s whose calm demeanor masked one of the sharpest business minds in Asia. Behind him walked his daughter Akiko, company's VP of International Development, and 3 senior advisors. Nakamura-san, Ahmed bowed precisely, having practiced the gesture countless times. Welcome to Dubai. It is an honor to finally meet you in person. Hiroshi returned the bow with equal precision. Al-Mansouri-san, the honor is mutual. Your reputation precedes you. As they moved toward the conference room, Ahmed caught a glimpse of Maya arranging documents at the presentation table. Good, he thought. At least she knows how to stay invisible when important people are talking. The conference room was a masterpiece of modern design, a 30-foot glass table surrounded by leather chairs that cost more than most people's cars. The walls displayed digital screens showing real-time data from al-Mansouri Holdings operations worldwide. Ahmed had spared no expense in creating an environment that projected power and success. Please be seated, Ahmed gestured grandly. Maya, bring the refreshments. As she moved to comply, he couldn't help but notice the way the Japanese executives acknowledged her, with polite nods, a courtesy he had never bothered to extend. Before we begin, Hiroshi said, settling into his chair, I must tell you how impressed we are with your sustainability initiatives in the renewable sector. It's exactly the kind of forward-thinking approach we're looking for in a partner. Ahmed smiled, feeling the familiar rush of being in control. Nakamura-san, what you've seen so far is just the beginning. Today I'm going to show you an opportunity that will revolutionize how our 2 companies approach clean energy in the Middle East and Asia. Maya placed a cup of green tea in front of each guest with practiced grace. Ahmed noticed how she anticipated their needs, adjusting the presentation remote closer to his reach, ensuring the lighting was optimal, checking that the sound system was functioning properly. For a temp worker, he was surprisingly capable. Shall we begin? Ahmed asked, his voice carrying the confidence of a man who had never lost a negotiation. He clicked the remote, and the first slide appeared on the massive screen behind him. Gentlemen, welcome to Project Sunrise, a $10 billion joint venture that will establish the largest solar and wind energy network in the Gulf region. The presentation unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony. Ahmed had spent months perfecting every slide, every statistic, every projection. The Japanese executives listened intently, occasionally exchanging glances and taking notes. Maya stood quietly by the technical equipment, monitoring everything with professional attentiveness. Halfway through the presentation, disaster struck. As Ahmed clicked to the next slide, the screen flickered and went black. A collective intake of breath filled the room. Ahmed's face darkened as he clicked the remote repeatedly. Nothing. Maya, his voice was dangerously quiet. Fix this. Now. He moved quickly to the control panel, her fingers dancing over the switches with practiced efficiency. I believe it's a connectivity issue, sir. Give me just a moment. But Ahmed was already beyond rational thought. In front of the most important clients of his career, his presentation had failed. His carefully cultivated image of control and competence was crumbling, and he needed someone to blame. His eyes locked onto Maya, and 20 years of arrogance and entitlement crystallized into pure rage. What happened next would cost him everything. You incompetent fool! Ahmed's voice shattered the professional atmosphere like a sledgehammer through glass. The Japanese executives jerked back in their chairs, shocked by the sudden explosion of fury. How can you be so utterly useless? This is exactly what I expected from someone like you. Maya's hands stilled on the control panel. Slowly, she turned to face him, her expression carefully neutral despite the verbal assault. Sir, I can have this fixed in... Don't you dare make excuses. Ahmed's face was red with rage, spittle flying as he jabbed his finger toward her. This is the most important meeting in my company's history, and you've destroyed it with your pathetic incompetence. The silence in the room was deafening. Hiroshi Nakamura's eyebrows had drawn together in a frown of deep disapproval. His daughter Akiko was staring at Ahmed with undisguised shock. The other executives shifted uncomfortably, their faces masks of professional politeness barely concealing their disgust. But Ahmed was too far gone to notice. The stress of the deal, the pressure of maintaining his empire and his lifelong need to dominate others had converged into a perfect storm of toxic behavior. He switched to Arabic, his voice dripping with contempt as he unleashed a torrent of insults that he was certain Maya couldn't understand. You worthless servant girl, he snarled in Arabic. You don't deserve to breathe the same air as these distinguished men. How dare someone of your low station embarrass me? You're nothing but an uneducated peasant who should be grateful I allow you in the same room as your betters. Maya stood perfectly still, absorbing every word. Her face remained composed, but something deep in her dark eyes began to change, like ice forming over a deep lake. Ahmed continued his verbal assault, his arrogance making him reckless. These Japanese businessmen are worth more than you could earn in 100 lifetimes. You don't have the intelligence to understand the importance of what we're discussing here. Maybe I should have you sent back to whatever third-world country you came from. The Japanese executives were now openly uncomfortable. Hiroshi had set down his teacup with a sharp click. Akiko was whispering urgently to one of the advisors, but Ahmed was too intoxicated by his own rage to care about their reactions. "Get out of my sight," he concluded his tirade in Arabic, "before I have security throw you out of this building, and don't expect to receive payment for today's work after this disaster." Maya finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, steady, and carried a weight that should have warned Ahmed that something fundamental had shifted. "Are you finished, Mr. al-Mansouri?" The calmness in her tone only fueled his fury further. "How dare you speak to me with that tone? Do you have any idea who I am? I could have you deported with a single phone call." That's when Maya smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who had just been underestimated by a man too arrogant to realize he had made the biggest mistake of his life. "Actually," she said, her voice carrying a new authority that made everyone in the room pay attention, "I know exactly who you are, Ahmed al-Mansouri. The question is, do you know who I am?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Ahmed's mouth opened to deliver another insult, but something in Maya's demeanor made him pause. For the first time since she'd entered his office, he was actually looking at her, really looking. "Allow me to introduce myself properly," Maya continued, her voice now carrying the unmistakable cadence of someone accustomed to command. "I am Maya Nakamura, Vice President of International Development at Nakamura Industries, and daughter of the man sitting at your conference table." The words hit Ahmed like a physical blow. The blood drained from his face as the full magnitude of his mistake crashed down on him. He had just spent 10 minutes publicly humiliating the daughter of his most important client in front of her father and the entire Nakamura executive team. Hiroshi Nakamura rose slowly from his chair, his face a mask of controlled fury. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but carried the weight of absolute finality. "Mr. al-Mansouri, this meeting is over." "Wait!" Ahmed's voice cracked as desperation replaced arrogance. "I didn't know. She didn't identify herself. She shouldn't have had to." Akiko Nakamura spoke for the first time, her voice ice-cold. "The way you treated someone you believed to be a service worker tells us everything we need to know about your character." Maya Nakamura, walked calmly to the conference table and began gathering the presentation materials. "For your information," she said without looking at Ahmed, "the technical malfunction was caused by a loose cable that I fixed in under 30 seconds. Your presentation could have continued without interruption if you had chosen patience over rage." Ahmed watched in horror as his $10 billion deal evaporated before his eyes. "Please, this is all a misunderstanding. I was under pressure." "There is no misunderstanding." Hiroshi Nakamura's voice cut through Ahmed's pleading like a sword. "A man's true character is revealed not in how he treats his equals, but in how he treats those he perceives as beneath him. Today, we have seen your true character." The Japanese delegation moved toward the exit with the synchronized precision of a military unit. As they reached the door, Hiroshi turned back one final time. "Mr. al-Mansouri, Nakamura Industries will never do business with you or any company you are associated with. Furthermore, we will be sharing our experience today with our partners throughout Asia and beyond." The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a death knell for Ahmed's empire. He stood alone in his magnificent conference room, surrounded by the trappings of power that suddenly felt hollow and meaningless. The silence was broken only by the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sounds of Dubai traffic 47 floors below. His phone began buzzing immediately. News traveled fast in the international business community, especially news this catastrophic. Within hours, the story would be whispered in boardrooms from Tokyo to London. Ahmed al-Mansouri, the arrogant oil baron who lost a $10 billion deal by insulting his client's daughter. But the immediate financial loss was only the beginning. Over the next few days, the full extent of the damage became clear. 3 other potential partners withdrew from negotiations, citing cultural concerns. His stock price plummeted as investors lost confidence in his leadership. Board members who had once feared him began to openly question his judgment. The irony was devastating in its completeness. Maya Nakamura had been working undercover, evaluating potential partners not just on their business proposals, but on their corporate culture and values. It was a new initiative by Nakamura Industries to ensure they only partnered with companies that shared their commitment to respect and dignity for all employees. Ahmed had failed the test spectacularly. 6 months later, Ahmed sat in the same conference room, but everything had changed. The 30-foot glass table was gone, sold to pay creditors. Half the floors of the Burj al-Mansouri had been leased to other companies. His empire, built over 20 years of ruthless ambition, had crumbled in the wake of 10 minutes of unbridled arrogance. A soft knock on the door interrupted his brooding. His new assistant, he could no longer afford a secretary of Fatima's caliber, entered hesitantly. "Mr. al-Mansouri, there's someone here to see you. He says her name is Maya Nakamura." Ahmed's head snapped up. Maya stood in the doorway, no longer wearing the conservative navy suit of a temp worker. Instead, she was dressed in an elegant charcoal business suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. But her eyes held the same calm intelligence he had been too arrogant to notice 6 months ago. "Hello, Ahmed," he said, stepping into the room. "I hope you don't mind the intrusion, but I was in Dubai on business and thought we should have a conversation." He gestured to one of the remaining chairs, his throat too tight for words. Maya settled herself with the same grace she had displayed while serving tea to her own father and colleagues. "I imagine you're wondering why I'm here," she said, her voice gentle but not warm. "The truth is, I've been thinking about that day quite a lot. Not because of the business we lost. Nakamura Industries has many partners, but because of what it revealed about both of us." Ahmed finally found his voice. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I came here today to understand something. When you were shouting at me in Arabic, calling me worthless and threatening to have me deported, there was something in your eyes that I recognized. It wasn't just arrogance or cruelty, it was pain." The words hit him like a physical blow. For 6 months, he had told himself that his behavior was justified by stress, by the pressure of the deal, by anything other than the truth. But Maya's quiet observation stripped away all his defenses. "You want to know something interesting?" Maya continued. "I've done my research on you since that day. I know about your childhood in the refugee camp in Jordan. I know about the years your family spent being dismissed, ignored, and treated as less than human. I know that you built your empire not just out of ambition, but out of a desperate need to never feel powerless again." Ahmed's hands were shaking. No one had ever spoken to him about his past with such clear-eyed understanding. "That doesn't excuse—" "No," Maya interrupted gently. "It doesn't excuse your behavior, but it explains it. The question is, what are you going to do with that understanding?" They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of truth settling between them like dust after an explosion. Finally, Ahmed spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to be different. This is who I've been for so long." "That day in the conference room," Maya said, "when I was playing the role of your secretary, I saw something else in you too. Before the presentation failed, you were actually impressive. Your passion for the renewable energy project was genuine. Your vision for clean technology in the Gulf region was innovative and forward-thinking. That man, the one with real vision and purpose, that's who you could choose to be." She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a folder. "I have a proposition for you. Nakamura Industries has been developing a new program to help businesses rebuild their reputations and their practices. It's for companies that have made serious mistakes but show genuine potential for change." Ahmed looked at the folder, as if it might contain either salvation or damnation. What would it involve? Complete transparency, a public acknowledgement of what happened that day and why it was wrong, mandatory training for you and every employee in your remaining companies on respect, diversity, and ethical business practices. And most importantly, proof through actions, not just words, that you've learned from your mistakes. The old Ahmed would have been outraged at the suggestion that he needed training, that he should publicly admit failure. But the man sitting across from Maya Nakamura had lost everything that the old Ahmed had valued, and in that loss he had found something he hadn't expected, the possibility of becoming someone better. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you help me after what I did to you?" Maya was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice carried a sadness that seemed older than her years. "Because 6 months ago, you reminded me of someone I used to know. My grandfather built Nakamura Industries from nothing after World War II. He was a brilliant man, but success made him hard. He treated employees like tools, competitors like enemies, and family like possessions." He looked out the window at the Dubai skyline, a reflection ghost-like in the glass. "He died alone, Ahmed. Despite all his wealth and power, He died alone because he had driven away everyone who ever cared about him. I don't want to see that happen to anyone else, even someone who once called me worthless. The folder lay between them like a bridge across an impossible chasm. Ahmed stared at it for a long moment, then looked up at the woman who had every reason to hate him, but instead was offering him redemption. "If I do this," he said slowly, "if I accept your help, there's no guarantee it will work. I might never rebuild what I..." Maya smiled, and for the first time since he had met her, it was a warm smile, full of genuine compassion. "Ahmed, what you lost was built on fear and intimidation. What you could build in its place, that might actually be worth having." 2 years later, Ahmed al-Mansouri stood before a packed auditorium at the Dubai International Business Ethics Conference. The speech he was about to give would be broadcast to business schools and corporate training programs around the world. His hands were steady as he adjusted the microphone, no longer the trembling instruments of a man desperate to cling to power. "My name is Ahmed al-Mansouri," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the auditorium. 2 years ago, I was a billionaire who believed that wealth gave me the right to treat other human beings as if they were disposable. Today, I'm here to tell you about the most expensive 10 minutes of my life and why losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me." In the front row sat Maya Nakamura, now a close business partner and, surprisingly, a friend. Beside her sat the leaders of the companies that had joined Ahmed's new venture, a non-profit foundation dedicated to ethical business practices and respect for workers at every level. The old al-Mansouri Holdings was gone, but what had risen in its place was something far more valuable, a legacy built on dignity rather than domination, on lifting others up rather than tearing them down. "I learned that day that true power isn't the ability to humiliate others," Ahmed continued, his words carrying the weight of hard-earned wisdom. "True power is the ability to see the inherent worth in every human being and to use your influence to help them shine." As applause filled the auditorium, Ahmed caught Maya's eye and saw something there that all his billions had never been able to buy: respect earned through authentic change. The man who had once called her worthless had discovered that his own worth was measured not in dollars, but in the lives he chose to touch with dignity and compassion. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to remember that everyone deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of their position or background. Subscribe for more incredible stories of transformation, redemption, and the power of seeing the humanity in every person we meet. Because sometimes, the most valuable lessons in life come not from our successes, but from the moments when we lose everything and discover who we really want to become.